If one of you earns 3 times more than the other, splitting bills 50-50 isn't fair. It's just math cosplaying as equality. And yet, millions of couples do it every single month. They call it simple. They call it clean. And some of them are quietly drowning in resentment because of it. Meanwhile, proportional splitting gets dismissed as keeping score or transactional. So which system actually works? I ran the numbers, I looked at the research, and just to warn you ahead of time, the answer is going to challenge whichever side you're already on. Picture two couples. Same city, similar income gap, one partner earning about double the other. Couple one does 50-50. Every bill, every dinner, every vacation, right down the middle. It feels equal, clean, mature even. But every month, the lower earning partner is quietly stretched. They're skipping the gym membership, saying no to a couple of things they would have wanted, telling themselves it's just temporary. Meanwhile, the higher earner barely notices the bills. They're building savings. The lower earner is treading water. Couple two does proportional. The higher earner covers 65% of shared expenses. The lower earner covers 35%. Both have similar amounts left over each month. Both are saving. Both feel like they're on the same team. Neither feels like a burden. Neither feels like a provider. Fast forward 5 years. Couple one is arguing about money constantly. Not because they're incompatible, but because the structure was quietly building resentment underneath a polished surface. Couple two? They just put a down payment on a house. Together. The system you choose matters more than most couples realize. So before I give you my verdict, I'm going to give both options a genuinely fair hearing, because both have real strengths and both have real failure points. Let's start with 50-50. And I mean this. I get why couples love it. The case for 50-50 is clean. It's the simplest possible system. No spreadsheets, no renegotiation every time someone gets a raise, no awkward, you earn more so you should pay more conversation. It treats both partners as financial equals. And for a lot of couples, that's not just practical, it's meaningful. There's dignity in contributing equally. It says, we're partners, not dependents. For couples where incomes are close, say one person earns $60,000 and the other earns $75,000, the gap is small enough that 50-50 is actually pretty fair in practice. Some financial therapists argue it also prevents a subtle power imbalance, where the higher earner unconsciously starts to feel they have more authority over shared decisions. That's a real dynamic. And 50-50 sidesteps it neatly. But here's where 50-50 breaks down. And it breaks down hard when the income gap is significant. When one partner earns $40,000 a year and the other earns $120,000, a 50-50 split might have them each paying $2,500 a month toward shared expenses. For the higher earner, that's roughly 25% of their take-home. For the lower earner, that could be 75% of theirs. The lower earner has almost nothing left to save, invest, or spend freely. No emergency fund, no retirement contributions, no breathing room. And here's the dangerous part. They often don't say anything because the system looks fair, because they don't want to seem like they're asking for charity. So they silently sacrifice their financial health while the relationship appears smooth on the surface. That silence is where resentment is born. And resentment, left unspoken long enough, becomes distance. This is what I mean when I say that fair and equal are not always the same thing. Now, proportional splitting. Again, let's give it the full case it deserves. The proportional model works like this. Each partner contributes to shared expenses based on their share of household income. If you earn 70% of the combined income, you cover 70% of joint bills. The lower earner covers the remaining 30%. The result? Both partners have a similar percentage of their income left over after shared expenses, which means both can save, invest, and spend freely at roughly the same rate. The playing field isn't equal in dollars, but it's equal in financial breathing room. And that breathing room is what actually determines whether someone can build long-term financial independence inside a relationship. Research from the American Psychological Association consistently identifies financial stress as one of the top predictors of relationship conflict. Proportional splitting directly reduces financial stress for the lower earner, which reduces friction across the whole relationship. It also aligns with the logic most people already accept in other contexts. The more you earn, the higher your contribution. Progressive logic applied to your household. But proportional splitting has real friction points, and I'd be doing you a disservice not to name them. The most common one is a subtle power dynamic. When the higher earner contributes more in raw dollars, even if both partners are contributing equally as a percentage, some couples find that the higher earner starts making unilateral decisions about shared spending, or the lower earner feels they're getting a deal and becomes reluctant to push back, even when they disagree. These patterns aren't inevitable, but they're real, and they tend to develop quietly in couples who set up the financial structure without setting up the communication structure alongside it. The second friction point is maintenance. Proportional splitting requires recalculation. Every raise, every career pivot, every maternity leave, 50-50 never needs renegotiation. Proportional does. That's not a deal breaker, but it is an ongoing commitment. And the third, income can shift fast. If the lower earner gets promoted and the gap shrinks significantly, does the ratio update immediately? If the higher earner has a difficult year, is that reflected in the numbers? A proportional system only works smoothly when both partners are willing to have honest, ongoing financial conversations. If your communication isn't strong, this system will expose that quickly.
So, what does the research actually say? And I want to be precise here, because the data is more nuanced than most finance content lets on.
A 2021 study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that couples who perceived their financial arrangement as fair, regardless of which specific system they used, reported significantly higher relationship satisfaction than those who felt the arrangement was unfair. The operative word, perceived. Fairness is subjective. That insight is important because it tells us the best system isn't necessarily the one that looks most equal on paper. It's the one both partners honestly feel is fair. And this matters. The same research found that when one partner was consistently contributing a disproportionately higher share of their disposable income to shared expenses, relationship tension was significantly elevated, even in couples who claim to be fine with the arrangement. So while perceived fairness matters, structural fairness, the kind that prevents one person from being financially depleted, acts as a flaw that can't be ignored. Here's the question I want you to drop in the comments. Have you and your partner ever explicitly agreed on what fair means when it comes to shared expenses?
Now, let me put this in numbers, because I want you to actually feel what's at stake. Say the higher earner takes home $7,000 a month. The lower earner takes home $3,000. Combined, $10,000. Shared monthly expenses, $4,000. Rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, subscriptions. Under 50-50, both pay $2,000. Higher earner has $5,000 left. Lower earner has $1,000 left. That's a 5-to-1 gap in discretionary income. If the lower earner saves $300 a month at 7% average annual return, in 10 years they have roughly $52,000. The higher earner, saving $1,500 a month at the same return, around $261,000, same household, wildly different financial futures. Underproportional, a 70-30 split. Higher earner pays $2,800. Lower earner pays $1,200. Higher earner has $4,200 left. Lower earner has $1,800 left. Now the lower earner can save $800 a month. Over 10 years at 7%, approximately $138,000. Even at a conservative 4% return,
they're looking at about $116,000 more in individual savings than under the 50-50 model. That's not a rounding error. That's a career cushion, a business seed fund, an emergency parachute, a down payment. The structure of your bill splitting isn't just about monthly budgeting. It's shaping two completely different financial destinies inside one relationship.
So, which system should you actually use? I promised you an answer, and it depends is not an answer, it's a dodge. Here's what I call the income gap decision matrix. 3 questions. Answer them honestly. Question 1. What's the actual income gap? If both partners earn within 25% of each other, 50-50 is defensible. The financial strain difference is manageable enough that the simplicity might be worth it. If the income gap is 40% or more, proportional is the structurally safer choice. The math is clear. Question 2. Does the lower earner have actual financial breathing room? After paying their share of shared expenses, can they save at least 10 to 15% of their income? Do they have an emergency fund? Are they contributing anything to retirement? If the answer to any of these is no, your current system is financially unsustainable, regardless of what it's called. Something has to change. Question 3. Have you actually talked about what fair means together? If you've never had this conversation intentionally, if you both just fell into a default system, that's the real problem, not the formula. The avoidance. The best couples I've seen navigate income gaps treat their financial arrangement like a living agreement. They revisit it annually, when incomes shift, when life shifts, not as a source of conflict, but as a shared project. My specific recommendation, a proportional base, with a shared household account for joint expenses and separate individual accounts where each partner retains meaningful discretionary control. The higher earner contributes more to the household account, but both partners have their own money that requires no justification, no permission, no guilt. This hybrid model preserves structural fairness and individual autonomy, and it prevents the quiet resentment that builds when one partner feels financially monitored or financially inadequate. Here's a gut check question to take with you. If your current splitting arrangement suddenly became transparent to people you respect, your parents, your closest friends, would both of you feel genuinely proud of it? Or would one of you feel like it needed explaining? That answer tells you more than any formula. Here's what I want to leave you with. The couples who fight about money least aren't the ones with the most of it. They're the ones who agreed, early, explicitly, on what fair means for them specifically. Not what looks cleanest, not what avoids the awkward conversation, what they actually believe is right given their actual circumstances. A 50-50 split in a wildly unequal income situation isn't equality. It's the illusion of equality at the cost of the lower earner's financial future. And a proportional split without clear, ongoing communication isn't fairness either. It's just math without trust. The formula is the easy part. The conversation is the work. I want you and your partner to actually do this before the end of this week. Separately, without discussing it first, write down what percentage of shared expenses you each think you should be contributing, given your current incomes. Then compare. If you're within 10 percentage points of each other, your instincts are already aligned. If you're far apart, you just found the conversation you've been avoiding. Have it. That conversation is where real couples finance begins. Not in a spreadsheet, in the same room with honesty on the table. Thank you for watching to the end. You could have spent the last minutes on anything, and you chose to think harder about your money and your relationship. That says something about where you're headed. If this video resonated, you'll want to watch the one where I break down joint accounts versus separate accounts, because how you split bills is only half the picture. Where you actually keep the money is the other half, and most couples get that part wrong too. It's right there on your screen.
I'll see you in that one.